Welcome. I am Miji, and this is my co-host Patty. And we want to say thank you for being here with us today. We created this show in an effort to create a movement to inspire others, share stories of greatness, stories of courage, and to showcase people in our communities, in our lives, who have inspired us and are doing remarkable things to make a difference in the quality of life of others.
Yeah, we created this show as a way to uplift people. When there's negativity in the world, we're the place, the outlet to go to find like-minded people and to hear inspiring stories. And today we have a very inspiring woman with us, Renee Stone, who's the owner of Serenity Stables and does so much work with veterans and disabled people and just so many good things in the world. And I'll let you introduce yourself because I can't do you justice. So I admire you so much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I started Serenity Stables from Combat to Calm in 2015. We're located in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. We have 6 horses in the program, and we do lots of different things there. We are primarily a veteran service organization, and our main focus is veterans. We have weekly groups from the Samaritan Daytop Village. These are young men, mostly post 9/11 Iraqi Freedom War veterans who have returned, struggling, PTSD, trying to self-medicate, addiction, really unraveled their lives. And we have 2 houses at the Samaritan Daytop Village. I collaborate with the United War Veterans Council, and we bring them out every Wednesday for equine therapy. So we have 2 different houses, one in Times Square and one in Queens, and there are 50 men in each house, so we rotate through. It's an earn and deserve program, and they come out for equine therapy every week. And then we also do the East Orange VA Hospital, the spinal cord units, and the Bronx VA. We have the paraplegics, quadriplegics. We bring them out several times a year for equine love and growth and learning, and we serve them lunch and just let the horses, love on them, really. And we do a variety of other things within the veteran community. We bring out nursing homes, veterans that are in nursing homes and their friends for lunch. We also do one-on-one therapy directly with individual veterans and groups. We have a group starting up this month from the Lakewood VA Center. These are Vietnam vets, which really need a lot of attention. Never got enough attention, in my opinion. They're coming. We also have a Collier School reached out to us, and some young girls that have really challenging backgrounds, and they asked us to do some equine therapy for them and raised a grant so I could use the grant to help the veterans. So they came for 12 weeks and again for 8 weeks, and they're coming back. We've had Sierra Club bring out a group of combat women, my first women group. That was amazing, and they had a fantastic day. So that's what we do.
So Renee, some of the issues that you address via the gifts that you're giving our community are PTSD, moral injury, military sexual trauma, sexual assault, and things like that. Please tell us a little bit about that, and why do you think this works so well?
Well, so I think a lot of people today now understand the PTSD. I like to drop the D because I don't like the word disorder. So at the farm, we only say PTS, post-traumatic stress. I think most people have heard that word. And it's just really the reliving of the traumatic event over and over and over again. And it actually affects your nervous system. It changes your nervous system. It rewires your brain. I mean, this is a fact. So many times veterans have tried to seek traditional therapy for treatment of that, and it doesn't work because talk therapy doesn't always help work on the subconscious. And for veterans, especially men, they were they were injured in a unit. You know, their PTS happened in a unit. So you have to heal them in a unit. Very much like horses. Horses do everything in a herd. So we've seen great success when they come together. And then we put them with, you know, they're of a predatory nature, and we put them with a prey animal. That's where the magic happens. And I'll talk a moment about how that works, but I think everyone understands PTS. I think a lot of people really have never heard moral injury. And this is something that many clinicians are recognizing as a whole nother level of trauma. So PTS is something that's happened to you. Moral injury is something you've done to someone else. So when you think about it, many of these young men and women growing up in a home of faith, Christian homes, where they're taught and raised not to kill, and then they go off to war, and whether it's an initial trauma or even a secondary trauma where they're in a room pressing a button to blow up an area of people, or behind, if they're a sniper and they're behind a gun and they're having to take someone's life. I mean, that's a whole other level. You know, a lot of people think the military clergy are there for them to, you know, help them with their Christian faith. That's not what they're there to do. The clergy are there to get them war ready, which that's a secondary trauma for those men.
Yes.
So that's what moral injury is. Also, the other term, MST, is something that's really starting to, I think, come into the forefront of trauma, is military sexual trauma for women, is really very sad, because many times, I mean, you're in the military, everything you do is as a team and in a group. So, you know, even when women are sexually abused in civilian life, a lot of them won't come forward. Well, imagine being in the military and you're now going to accuse someone in your own unit, and the person that you have to report it to may be the very person that's doing the abusing.
Yeah.
So a lot of that trauma goes unspoken. Those are really the unseen wounds that are causing these numbers that people throw out, 22 a day or 20. I'm sure it's way more than that, the statistics of veteran suicide. So I'm trying to help those people and offer them an alternative to talk therapy. And the reason equine therapy has become so popular and works so well is it's an unspoken treatment. It's experiential treatment. Horses have survived for millions of years because they live in an environment where they sense the world. That's how they get through the world. They sense everything. And then they reflect the internal emotion of the person. So the horse mirrors what's going on with you internally. So, you know, I always like to say, someone might tell you something about yourself. Until you look in the mirror and see it, you don't recognize it, right? Yeah. So the horse is the mirror. So if you're afraid, and you tell me you're afraid, or you're not afraid, and I put you in with my horses, and my horse is afraid, I know you're afraid. You don't have to tell me you're afraid. You don't have to say those words. You don't have to say you're sad. You don't have to say you're depressed. You don't have to say you're traumatized. The horse is going to respond to all of those emotions and allow you to feel them. And if you can feel, you can heal. And that's...
So Patty, Renee, you probably know that she gifted me 12 sessions with the horses. And until that day, I never knew how much, I mean, it makes me, wow.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you, because that experience was extremely powerful.
Very.
Speaking about it and experiencing are two different things. And when I was in there with these horses and what I learned about myself and how they were able to just connect with me, there were days that I walked in there, and as I'm driving, the horses are already sensing that I'm coming and they're walking towards the gate. Other times I'm maybe just needing a little bit of a touch, and without saying anything, the horses are just rubbing against and just giving me that love. So it was really, really powerful. And Renee, I know that we have many, many questions for you, but you're a product of a traumatic life. You've experienced severe trauma, and I would like for you to talk a little bit about your story and just let us know what your story, where it began, and the things that happened to you, because I think that's really worth sharing. Do you not think so?
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. What led you into this path? You know, it's so powerful.
Well, I grew up in a pretty crazy house. My father was a veteran who, at the time, they didn't call it PTS, they called it shell shock. And only years later did we really truly understand what was wrong with him. But he had attempted to kill himself and didn't succeed, but ended up paralyzed. Was shot through my bedroom door in my house when I was, I guess, about 13. So I spent my young formative years in and out of VA hospitals. That's where we were all the time with him. And shortly after he was disabled, I guess I was about 13. When I was 17, my mother died of lung cancer. So I was left to care for my disabled father, my young brothers. I had some older brothers that were kind of out of the house. One was in the Coast Guard, one kind of was a hippie of the 70s. So, and I was left behind to pick up the pieces. So I spent many weeks and years in VA hospitals around these men that were just left really for dead. I mean, it had a really big impact on me. So I would, go to the VA hospital and wheel my father out and his friends and play the piano for them and sing to them and, do silly things and squirt, water through straws and play games with them and just anything to lighten them up. And some of these men were lying on gurneys with no arms, no legs, no family, nobody checking on them. And I remember saying to myself back then, one day I'm going to do something. But of course, when you're a young girl, you can't do a lot, right? So I don't know why I'm getting so emotional.
Oh my God, thank you for what
So,
you do. Thank you.
What I did was we eventually amputated my father's legs and moved him to Florida. So then I was down in VA hospitals down there. And, he lived way too long, honestly. The man should have died. It was not a great way to spend I think he was about 47 when he was shot. And he lived to probably, I guess I was about 31. And then he died, and I was, he died. I was going through a divorce. And I always loved horses, always wanted a horse. I grew up in an area where I was around a lot of people who had farms and horses, but we never, of course, could afford a horse. So I was, going to college, putting myself through college, 12 years nights. And when I graduated, I said, I'm going to get myself a horse. And my friends were like, you're crazy. You can't just go buy a horse. Yes, I can. I can just buy a horse because that's what I'm willing to do. So at 31, I got my first horse. And Tristan, he was a crazy thoroughbred off the track. I had absolutely no business owning him, but I was fearless. I grew up in a house with 5 men, and my house was like a military house. I mean, my brothers were nuts, and we were all, a pretty crazy family. So I was like, I can ride a horse, and I just started to ride. And then I guess it was about 2 years after I had Tristan, I had a severe accident with him, and he kicked me in the head, fractured my skull, and I had a traumatic brain injury. And I almost died, but I lived. And I kept him. And about a year after that, I was in a really bad car accident that resulted in the death of a little boy. And that's where the PTS came in. And my whole world crashed down. I was completely unable to function. And that's when I first heard the words, you have post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was like, what is that? I mean, I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't go in the bathroom. I was hallucinating in the day and seeing this young boy in my yard. I mean, it really is a awful, awful thing to go through. And I went to psychiatrists, and they threw drugs at me, and went to therapy, and that's when they told me what I had, and nothing worked except one thing. I went to the farm to see my horse, and I knew right then and there in 1998, I said, if everyone had a horse that had this,
Wow.
they'd be okay. Because when you're there, you're present. Horses bring you present. You're not, we're all so busy in this life, and we're thinking ahead or we're looking behind, one of the two. You're either thinking about what happened or you're thinking about what you have to do. And that constant mind rambling and rattling, as I say, is a really difficult thing if you are also dealing with a trauma and reliving it. But the horses stop that, and all that stops when you're with them, when you're in the herd. And their vibration, their energy, they pick up. So you see what's going on with you, and then you start to relax and they relax. And it's this cyclical emotion that suddenly you feel better. I mean, you know it. You leave, and it hangs with you for hours and sometimes even days.
You can't get enough.
You can't get enough. And
when you invited Brianna, my youngest child, and our family to the Serenity Stables, and that was my first experience with this, being around equine therapy in respect, and it was just amazing. Bri had never seen a horse. She's got a rare disorder, Pallister-Killian, as you know, syndrome, and just the way the horse was, he went right to her head.
Samson went
And
right to the spot.
Right to her
Right
leg.
to the spot.
And you said he knows there's something with her brain. She has some cognitive issues with this.
I didn't even
with
know
the
that at
disorder.
the time. I said there's something with her going on with her head, and you had told me.
Yeah.
I
And
could
then
tell.
the muscles and the legs, the feet. It was just going right from up to bottom, and he was so gentle, like just right there. And she responded so well.
smiled.
She'd never seen a horse. She's smiling. I mean.
Yeah.
And she's very, when she meets new people, animals included in that, she's very taken aback. She kind of like checks you out and makes sure that things are okay. But she was really, really responsive
Just
Yeah.
touch.
to that animal. And for a child with such visual impairment, I was so moved. So
That was a beautiful, beautiful moment. Samson's an amazing horse. I love him. He's so great. He does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew there was something to that, and I started to think about it. But of course, I'm in the mortgage business, and I work crazy hours, and I thought, one day when I retire, I'm going to do something with this. And then I started to see society popping up, equine therapy. I'm like, yes, I know this. I want to do this. And I kept saying when I retire, and God kept saying, I don't think so.
Now, right?
I think you're going to do it now. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm busy. I work full time. I barely have time for my own horses. No. And then up the road from my house, the property came available for lease, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I leased the property, and I took my 27-year-old horse, and I rode him 7 miles through the woods because I can't get him on a trailer, and showed up at the property and started the program. Yeah, July 2015, so it's almost 4 years.
That's amazing how you've grown also. How many horses do you have now?
So I own 2, and I board in 4 others.
So, and you have how many people do you think come a month there?
Oh,
I
wow.
mean,
Someone asked me this the other day, and I said, I really should know these numbers. I would say we have every week we have at least 10 men every week. And then in addition, when the spring starts, April through October, 2 other days a week, we bring groups out of 10 or 20. So yeah,
And it's
do the math.
a full day, ongoing hours. I mean, it requires a lot of preparation for you to do this. It's not they just show up and they spend a little bit of time with the horse. No, Renee goes into all this preparation, plus she also provides counselors that are certified and other assistants and volunteers. I mean, it's a whole production as a second job, but your greatest passion, I would say.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
And you also have fundraising. I'm sorry to interrupt.
We follow the GALA model, which is Equine Assisted Growth and Learning. So the treatment plan includes a licensed social worker and sometimes licensed clinical social worker who is the mental health expert, the MH, and then an equine specialist who's the ES. So it's a two-person treatment team, and it's the two people guiding the group or the individual out into the horses and watching the horses for 5 different things. So they're called spuds. So we watch the horse to see if the horse, there is any shifts, patterns, any uniqueness, discrepancy, and the S is our stuff. Anything that we're bringing in that we have to be careful of because the horse picks up on that. So we look for a shift in the horse or a pattern. And if they do it more than twice, we make note of that. And then we call the person back in and say, we noticed the horse did that. Can you tell us about that? And that becomes what's going on with them on a subconscious level. It's fascinating to watch. And suddenly the person will have a memory that maybe they didn't have, or an emotion that they couldn't feel. Especially with PTS, you're frozen. You can't. It's not that you can't cry. You don't know where cry is because cry is stopped. Everything, all the emotion is stopped. But the horses, doesn't matter. They're like, they just unlock it all. And next thing you know, you start feeling. And it's because aside from the therapy, there is equine growth and learning, team building with horses. And so I tested it on some of the real estate agencies that I work with through my regular job at Homebridge Financial. And they were really, really impressed and surprised by what had gone on with their groups in with the horses. So now that I know we've worked it and tested it and it really does work, I'm now looking for corporations that want to actually pay grants to do corporate team building and using those funds to help fund the veteran program. Okay. Yeah.
That's good, because I mean, you need support.
Yes.
To keep growing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantastic program.
And I do have a Vietnam veteran, Walter Cooper, who wants to do another fundraiser this year and try to do it out of VFW. It's really hard to put those on at the farm. I don't have a lot of parking, you know, and unless I tried to do it at a different facility. So I haven't really looked to do another one at this point, but.
So Renee, you're multifaceted, and there's so many things that you do, and there's so many areas that you dabble into, so many people and groups of people that you impact. But for the sake of what we are discussing mostly here, if I could ask you to give a heartfelt message to our viewers that are veterans or veteran spouses or veteran children, regarding the challenges and the possibilities through alternate therapies and services like this, what would you say?
Well, if you're a veteran who is not living your full life, and that is different for everyone,
Sure.
and you're suffering from any issue, PTS, addiction, depression, you know, reach to people you know. There are people out there that will help. Get out into nature. It's not just horses. Go to the parks, get around dogs, get around any animal. I mean, horses are the best in therapy, in my opinion, because they're a prey animal, and because they live and sense life through emotion and sensing. But don't stay home alone. That you can't do that. There are so many wonderful programs out there to help people. There's a warrior camp I recently went to do some veteran military training on equine therapy up in Warwick, New York. And you can go there and you can do a 10-day program. And they do a variety of things. They do narrative writing, they do yoga, they do sweat lodge, they do equine therapy, and they combine them all together. If you're a family member, seek help for them. You know, reach to me. I'm in touch with a lot of organizations all over the state, all over the country, really. I have a lot of people call me from all over, and we network and try to send someone to somewhere else. We are a nonprofit. We don't charge veterans for any of their treatment.
But you do have a possibility. Do you have a funding page, or I mean, people want to make donations and help out.
Absolutely. We have a website.
Okay.
Our website is serenitystable.fcc.org. We're on Facebook. We are also, you can click on Amazon and select us as your charity under Amazon Smile. If you use Amazon a lot, every time you buy something, they'll send a small donation to us. So, yeah, I think you can overcome anything. You can overcome anything.
Talking about that,
You can.
she just took
You
off
really
her
want
brace,
to.
right, Patty?
It's amazing.
So you just broke your back again?
Yes.
Or,
Not again.
Okay.
The last time I slipped some discs. This time I broke it.
and you took off the brace to do the interview
Yeah.
against my
Recommendation. I know. But you can if you really want to. You know, and more so than military. These are strong individuals. These men and women have sacrificed so much, and I think the real message I would like to get across is that for the civilians, for people that don't have military families, they don't really know much about the military. They're really not taught in school what the sacrifices are, not just of the man or woman that's gone off to deployment, but the people that are left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, I currently have active duty nieces. My niece right now is a warrant officer bringing a ship through Japan right now with a team of 60 men. She's been gone from her husband 4 times already in the last 5 years for almost 9-10 months at a time. You know, the sacrifices of the children. They don't see their fathers or mothers for months and months and months at a time. And the wives, they can't start a career. They get a career going, they have to leave in another 3 years, 4 years. So the sacrifices, you know, aside from the worst of situations, getting injured, but then it's the unseen injuries as well. So I think, you know, civilians need to do more to integrate and help veterans when they come back. Team Red, White, and Blue is a beautiful organization, and they do that really well. Because that's where the real problems begin. These men are okay when they're in the unit. Yeah. They're like the horses. They need to be in a herd. If you take a horse out of the herd, he feels vulnerable.
Plus, also the idea. I know my kid's father might have 3 children, military brats, but that I remember my children's father used to say, "I will not going to cost our government, our country, any more money." So coming back, just that sense of not wanting to have our military spend a dime on him, or maybe the needs that he may have. So I find that just really difficult, because people out there don't really reach out to, don't really reach out because they don't know where to go.
Right.
But
right.
And we can stay here all day. I think that.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us, Renee. I'm truly inspired, and it's so fascinating, equine therapy and what you're doing.
Thank you.
So thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
It's been such an honor to know you, and such a pleasure. And for our viewers out there, I hope you have become inspired, and that you're inspired to inspire others. I am Miji.
And I'm Patty. Thank you for joining us this week on Inspire.